Welcome back to Automate Live. My name is Brian Heater. I am the managing editor of A3, and I'm joined by Erik Nieves of Plus One Robotics. We had a great conversation last year. I was like, what can we do to get Erik in front of a camera? So thanks for joining us. I wanted to start with the company was founded in 2016. Is that right? So next year is 10 years.
Yeah.
So that's a good milestone. How's the market changed in that time?
Well, let's see. Between 2016 and 2025, you had COVID in the middle of that, which acted as an accelerant to everything warehouse automation is about.
Yeah.
Right?
Has that maintained?
No, it hasn't. So that was the notion was it that curve going to continue on, or did it just pull forward 2 or 3 years of time?
And what were you putting the money on?
Well, what I was putting money on and what the VCs were putting on might be different, right? But no, clearly that sort of adoption curve was never going to be real forever, right? And yet it served a real purpose in bringing a lot of energy into this space. And if there's anything now, it's during that period, you had a lot of startups saying, wow, robots in warehouses is going to be a thing. Let's get in there. And that reckoning is coming due now. There's too many of them. So there is consolidation in the warehouse automation space now that probably would not have been true today 8 or 9 or 10 years in, had it not been for COVID sort of acting as an accelerant and then sort of, tapering off after that.
Yeah, the nature of jobs changed, obviously. The nature of what people want to do and where they want to work has changed as well. Is there a sense in which the companies feel like they're kind of working backwards from that and trying to accommodate what the Gen Z, what the current workforce is looking out for?
I don't know that they're that sort of intentional about it, but it happens. One of my favorite instances is we had a customer that needed to do depalletizing. Fine, we do a lot of that. And like every customer, it was all about rate. I need to know, can you hit this rate? And so it's all about throughput. Got you. So we built a system for throughput. As you know, Plus One monitors all our systems remotely. And I noticed, looking at the dashboard, that the throughput had dropped significantly, from like 600 to 450 cases an hour. My phone should be blowing up right now. So we, being proactive, reached out to them and said, hey, what's going on with your robot? And they're like, oh, we love it. And I was trying to reconcile this dichotomy in my mind when it turns out they were like, oh, we just keep sending the robot the pallets with all the really big, heavy boxes. We hate doing those.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Of course, those are going to run slower.
Yeah.
They're bigger and there's fewer of them per pallet and all of that. But it's an example of, in the end, robots are going to take the jobs people don't want.
Yeah.
It didn't matter really how the robot ended up in there. So, in the notion of robots work, people rule, which is, Plus One's tagline, that's a manifestation of it that I didn't expect. Right.
So in these conversations that you're having with clients or potential clients, how often does the phrase lights out come up? Lights out.
Oh, too often.
Too often.
And regularly, it's one of the first questions that I say no to, and I say it definitively. Lights out operation is not a thing. There is going to be no lights out warehouse. If there were, it would be a very dull operation with a single SKU coming in and a single SKU going out, right? That's not real.
It's not real now, but even projecting 5-10 years?
No, I'm not a believer in lights out anything. At the end of the day, people are smarter than all of the equipment we make. And that means the same people are going to be making new ways to challenge the process. And that means you're going to have people in the operations. I mean, my whole company's called Plus One because I'm a human exceptionalist. People are better than robots at everything that matters. And in the warehouse, what matters is your ability to adapt to change, because that's the difference between a lot of automation and, what I would call up and coming automation. Traditional automation is all high volume, low mix. Do the same thing the same way 800,000 times. You don't need a lot of intelligence there, and you don't need a lot of supervision. But on the flip side, agriculture, construction, warehouse, anything that's a variable environment where change is the rule, you're going to have automation tools, but you are also going to see those tools disappoint you.
Yeah.
And you better have a human in the loop to deal with them in real time. That's the notion.
And for you, for the foreseeable future, the industrial setting is enough to keep you busy forever.
I made the determination when we started Plus One that this notion of supervised autonomy, because that's what we would call it if we were in academia, supervised autonomy, it needed a crucible in which to mature. And that crucible is the warehouse. Obviously, human-in-the-loop robotics has plays in all kinds of other verticals, but we're not done yet getting all of it working the way it ought. And then it's scalable to the outside. I can tell you where the first adjacency is going to be back in manufacturing.
But it's the controlled setting first, and then
yes, yeah. I mean, everything is crawl, walk, run, and in the era of supervised autonomy, you are definitely in the walk phase today. But manufacturing is going to be the next adopter. Every major manufacturer has a warehouse under roof. They don't think of it that way. They don't call it that, right? It's just inventory and work in process, but it's a distribution center under roof. And so a lot of these same techniques are going to find their way there. But, construction and other applications where, change is the rule of the day, you'll end up with a human in the loop.
Yeah, I right before this, I was having a conversation with an executive at ABB, and it really struck me when he was talking about the company's timeline that they introduced their first electric-powered robot 51 years ago, and I could be butchering the way he phrased it, but basically like their first cobot in 2015, which is really interesting because we tend to abstractly think about things going in the other direction, that they become less collaborative, that the machines take over more work. But the trend over the past several decades has become more collaborative.
Yeah. Well, that's where the need is. I mean, if you go into an automotive body shop here just outside of Detroit, you're going to see in the body and white area, it's all robots, spot welding, paint, press transfer, everything else. But go to the other side of the wall into final assembly, and it is an absolute sea of biology.
Yeah.
Right? What's the difference? It's the same ROI.
Yeah. Just right? One spreads COVID, the other doesn't.
Yeah. Well, one of them requires a lot more dexterous manipulation, and there's a lot more options. So in the body and white, you might have 8 or 10 different choices of coupe, sedan, et cetera. But in the final assembly, it's thousands of different options. So just that alone increases the complexity of an automated system. Plus, do this thought experiment. Imagine your job is to take and plug in the harness for the seat heater under the passenger seat, right? You're going to have to pick it up, feel under the carpet, pop up from under there, find the receptacle, click it in, hear it, tug on it, make sure that it's well seated, and then you're done.
Well, I come from a long line of heater inspectors, so I like to think that it's second nature for me.
Yes,
I understand the point that you're trying to make. In terms of talking about some of these macro trends, though, I'm going to ask you to make a sort of a big blanket statement, but is the trend towards more diversification under a single roof in terms of like what's actually done manufacturing wise?
I think manufacturing and industry is all about price and performance.
Sure.
Right? So general purpose versus specialized, I think, is the question. And no general purpose machine in history has ever outperformed a purpose-built machine for that thing.
Yeah.
So if your demands are such that you have enough volume for any specific thing, you will end up with a purpose-built machine. That's true.
Yeah.
It's if you have a collection of lower throughput, lower demand, then a general purpose device becomes very compelling, right? And I do think that you will see both in the manufacturing context.
You don't feel that like specialization is outperforming generalization?
I do think specialization is outperforming generalization on a given task. But here's the thing. There's also an ROI to be paid attention to. And if I have 8 different specialized tasks that all run for 2 hours a day, I will never automate those with a purpose-built machine because I need 8 of them. But if I had a general purpose machine that could do 4 of them and another one that could do 4 of them, well, wait a minute. Now my utilization goes up. Never underestimate the power of utilization in this market for driving an ROI. And so whether general purpose was in fact faster than specialized, never. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a compelling ROI.
Yeah. So 5 years from now or 10 years from now, are we going to see a lot of humanoid robots in the industrial setting?
I don't think so. Yes, there will be humanoids in the space. But I'm a believer that what's really going to happen is a lot of the techniques and, stuff that's sort of developed by the humanoid community will find more manifestation in industrial robots than they will in the humanoids themselves. Right?
That's interesting. Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before, and I was saying I'm seeing this play out already, and this is probably going to play out a lot more as the herd kind of thins out, that a lot of these humanoid, like broadly speaking, full stack humanoid companies are going to become specialists.
Yeah, I do think that's right. And I wouldn't be surprised if they become specialists from the torso up, right? There's really not a lot of specialization from your torso down, right? Yeah. It's here.
Sure.
It's here.
Maybe for a soccer player.
Yeah. So I think you will see more sort of pedestal plus torso plus specialized set of gear as really where you see more humanoid techniques than you will bipedal robots working through the facility. But even before that, you mentioned ABB. It would not surprise me at all if some of the techniques for left-hand, right-hand coordination that the humanoid people have to solve for their purposes, you don't see immediately at ABB, Fanuc, Yaskawa, Universal, all the industrial folks that for 35, 40 years, we've had to deconstruct every task we've ever had to deal with as one arm.
Reverse engineer.
That's right.
Yeah.
And instead, hey, wouldn't it be just easier if my left hand knew where my right hand was? It would be. And we're going to just grab those technologies. Yeah. Thank you, humanoid people. We wouldn't have done it without you. And they're going to be applied in industrial robots.
So let me propose then, like near-term evolution then. So bidextrous manipulation, stationary robots onto AMRs, and then, perhaps full humanoids.
Yeah. And if by full humanoids, we mean legs, I think that's the one that you'll see the least, right? Just because, if warehouses and factories needed, feet, forklifts would have sprouted legs 30 years ago. They don't, right? Wheels are good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I was saying before, I think there are probably 3 conversations that you're having a lot, and that's humanoids, which we just talked about, generative AI, and then we're wrapping up. So I'm just gonna put it to you real bluntly that based on sort of like global macro trends that are happening right now, in terms of decentralizing or reshoring manufacturing, how have your conversations changed in the past 6 months?
Certainly in my world where we spend a lot of time moving parcels, right? Tariffs matter because it directly impacts flows of volumes of parcels. So everybody's kind of in look and see, and it changes day by day. So, we're here for the ride. But in terms of manufacturing, clearly there will be more manufacturing brought back to, friendlier shores as you want to think about it. Right.
So you're getting the conversations you're having are more about domestic manufacturing than ever before, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, forget tariffs. COVID alone showed us there are things we should be building ourselves.
Supply chains, for
right.
example, yeah.
Right? And so, tariffs are just going to accelerate that to a degree, but it didn't really change the macros that way.
Yeah. Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Always a
Brian.
pleasure.
All right.